Hey Dragon Slayers! Today's video is about breast cancer and its connection to insulin resistance. The cancer perhaps most commonly linked to insulin resistance is breast cancer, which is also the most common cancer in US women, though very rarely, less than 1% of cases, men also develop breast cancer. The fact that it's not the most common worldwide highlights the importance of the environment in so many diseases, including cancers. And insulin resistance has a very strong connection to our environment. We'll explore that in depth in a later video. Women with the highest fasting insulin levels, that is, women with insulin resistance, are those with the worst breast cancer outcomes. Remember, insulin tells cells, including cancer cells, to grow. But the increased insulin alone may account for only part of the insulin breast cancer connection. The average breast cancer tumor has over 6 times more insulin receptors than non-cancerous breast tissue. 6 times more. That means this malignant tissue is 6 times more responsive to insulin and its growth signals than normal tissues. Ultimately, the connection between insulin resistance and breast cancer has been so consistently observed over the years that when trials began treating breast cancer patients with insulin sensitizing medications, it wasn't surprising to see an improvement in the disease. Essentially, the researchers found that controlling insulin helped control breast cancer. A related connection is the role of fat tissue itself. We'll spend a while exploring the complicated relationship between insulin resistance and obesity. And we had previously highlighted how excess body fat increases circulating estrogens. Breast tissue is sensitive to estrogens, and estrogens send a growth signal to breast tissue. When this happens excessively, such as in the case with obesity, the breast tissue is more likely to grow excessively, increasing the risk of developing breast cancer. So I found this interesting study. It is from a medical journal. I link it in the description below. So it talks about the background. It says that insulin resistance is associated with higher all cause and cancer specific mortality in postmenopausal women. However, the authors acknowledge the information regarding insulin resistance and breast cancer mortality risk is limited. Therefore, the authors examine associations between insulin resistance and breast cancer incidence and mortality in a subsample of women's initiative patients, women's health patients. So it was the method that they used. They took a total of 22,837 postmenopausal women with fasting baseline glucose and insulin levels and followed for incidence of breast cancer and breast cancer mortality. Breast cancers were verified by medical record review and serial national death index linkage. Enhanced mortality findings. Insulin resistance was estimated using the homeostatic model assessment of insulin resistance, otherwise known as HOMA-IR. This is considered to be highly accurate in the field for measuring insulin resistance. Multivariable Cox proportion hazard models were used to computerize hazard ratios with 95% confidence. So basically, they just used a computer to see what the stats were, and they were 95% confident in those results. The outcomes included breast cancer incidence, death from breast cancer, and deaths after breast cancer followed by death from any cause. So the results, the median was 19.8 years. The follow up was 1328 breast cancer cases. There were 512 deaths reported. 151 of them were from breast cancer. Breast cancer incident was higher in women in the highest HOMA-IR. So basically, the women that had the highest insulin resistance had the highest incident of breast cancer. And then they go through and they say that although Homer IR was not found to be associated with the risk of death from breast cancer, women in the highest versus those in the lowest Homer IR quartile were at the higher risk of death after breast cancer. So the conclusions were that higher levels of insulin resistance in in postmenopausal women were associated with the higher breast cancer incidence and higher all cause mortality after being diagnosed with breast cancer. That's just one case. There are many others that you can look up and research. That's what I've got for you guys today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And remember that together, you and I will slay the dreaded diabetes dragon.